Good morning, good afternoon, or wherever you're tuning in from, hello, and welcome to Soul and Sky's Field Notes, the Alaska Tapes. My name is Kate, and I am Soul and Sky Weddings, the owner. And today we are going to be chatting with Elise Cevetello from Seward Heli, because in this series we are focused on conversations with amazing pros across Alaska who can help couples just like you create an amazing, intimate elopement, wedding, or romantic travel across the wild and incredible state of Alaska. So with that in mind, we are going to chat with Elise. Elise cannot wait to hear about all the magic around Seward and Kenai Fords and everything that you've got going on. Why don't you tell us a little bit about Seward Heli and what you get?
Sure. So we are a summer operation in Seward. The helicopters are there from early May through early September. That is when you want to fly in Alaska, is in the summer, especially when you're planning a trip for like a special day. And there's a lot of things that go into that. You want to be there for the best weather window of the year in Alaska so that things run as smooth as possible. So that's when we're open.
Mm-hmm.
Seward's an amazing place to fly with the water and the mountains. It's really beautiful. There's a lot of glaciers there to see. Kenai Fjords with the Tidewater glaciers is a very special and unique place. And another great thing about Seward is that you have access to so many other places as well. So unlike Southeast Alaska, which I also lived in for several years, where it's very hard to travel logistically. So you go to this one amazing place, but then it's all small towns and then it's hard to go anywhere else. Seward,
Right.
you can have an amazing experience, and then you can just drive in a couple hours to experience a different part of Alaska. So that's one of the great things about Seward being this beautiful coastal mountainous town, also connected to other places. I've been in Alaska tourism almost 10 years.
I will say that is one of the huge, I will say that is honestly one of the differences. And the things that I love about Seward is when you're there, like you can feel absolutely remote. We'll talk about Bear Lake and the lagoon and all of that. Yeah. Nothing is more remote than that, right? But like you are connected, there are some amenities, there's a cool little town. And so Seward is really interesting in that way. And it's a beautiful hub, and it's kind of a balance for people who want experiences and adventure versus just being a hub for adventure. So I agree about that proximity thing as well.
The thing people come to Alaska oftentimes not understanding is how big it is and how long it takes to get places. And and so to have some place that Seward is beautiful and lively, and to have this kind of mountains and sea combination, but then with a town, but then being able to also get other places is actually really unique. Like I can't think of another place in Alaska that's like that.
Yeah, because like when you go up to Matanuska, sure, technically you're kind of close to Anchorage, kind of, but it's a couple hours, right? And it's out in the middle of.
Well, there's no town there. There's not going to be anything going on.
No.
You're not going to be able to like go out to a restaurant. You're not going to be able to hike this big trail. And like you're really just there for the Matanuska. That is it. And then you're just kind of far from everything else.
Yeah.
And then you go think of like the Connect. And then you've got the Connect, which is great. But then you're in a city. And I love Palmer in the winter. I've spent quite a lot of time in Palmer. I was based there last winter. It's awesome in the winter when like the little towns are very quiet. I don't mind doing city life, but you are in a city. You are not in a charming small Alaska town.
Yeah, it's very different. Palmer on the north and then Girdwood on the south. Girdwood has a totally different vibe because of the ski resort that's there. So yes, it's very, very different. So I would fully agree. Seward is a little bit of a unicorn, which is absolutely why I love it so, so, so much. The city is very cool. The experiences are diverse. So let's talk a little bit about the experiences that are available through you guys at Seward Heli or just around Seward in general. Because I think when people think of Alaska, right, they think glaciers. But glaciers in Seward are very different than they are in other places in the state. So I think it's worth some conversation.
Yeah, that's another thing for people to wrap their head around when coming to Alaska is I think people see a photo of a glacier and think they're all like that. And there are thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of glaciers up here, and they're
Right.
all very different. And in Seward specifically, one of the great things about the area is the Kenai Fjords National Park. It also poses some restrictions because it is a national park. It's there to be preserved.
Yeah.
So no helicopter company can land within the national park. We cannot land on any glaciers in the national park. And
Okay.
a lot of those glaciers are the only ones in the area where you would be able to do an ice landing safely or land next to a blue pool you
Hmm.
might see in a
Yeah.
photo. And I always encourage people, versus going to a place with a particular picture in their mind, I encourage them to find what's best for that place. Don't try and make a picture you saw in your mind on Google match where you're going. Try and find out if this is where you want to go, what makes that place special. Do that. So with Seward, some of the things that make it special is you can view the tidewater glaciers from the air. You can kayak around the icebergs in the Bear Glacier Lagoon. One of the most special things I've done I've been in Alaska almost 10 years in tourism, specifically the entire time. So I've done the ATV tours, the
Hmm.
canoe tours, that I've guided them specifically and managed them and had access to a lot of really cool
Yeah.
stuff. And I will say kayaking around those icebergs is really amazing and really special and not something you can do everywhere. And then
I will second that. I'm gonna interject because do you remember the experience that you said yes to for me? Do you remember what
yeah,
we created?
yes, you
Yes.
guys did
I
the
mean, for
highlight.
me, that is like the we did. It was incredible. It was incredible.
That's an amazing highlight. You guys did really you know, a lot of the great things to do in Seward. You did the dog sledding tour, which there's very few places in the state that do that. There's a ton of work that
Mhm.
goes into being able to do that tour. There's just a lot of setup involved, a lot of
Yeah.
overhead costs. You find very few places in the state that do that,
Yeah.
and Seward is one of them. So that's another special thing to do in the area. With the dog sledding.
And if I can
Go
pause
ahead.
there again, I was going to say, I think with the dog sledding tour, I think one of the things that I would want couples to know as they're exploring that or looking at that as an option is there are places that do them. But if you don't do it on a glacier in the summer, like if you're looking at summer dog sledding, it's going to be on a wheeled cart in the woods, which is equally beautiful. It's just different, right? But if you want the true dog sledding experience, to your point, there are very few places to do it through you guys is definitely one of the best. And then one of the benefits that in working closely with you, right, we were able to do a semi-private tour, right? So when we landed on the glacier, there were a few people who were wrapping up their tour and heading out, but we were the last one of the day, I think is how it worked. And so we had that benefit of having this intensely private camp experience and then the trail ride where they ended up saying their vows and Shelby came out and, on the snowmobile. But just that ability to make it private is also incredibly unique. There are so many
Yeah.
places where that's not feasible because the way they schedule the tours, the number of people, the rotation of people. And so I think if you want that private experience, like being able to talk to the vendor like you and really asking those questions or working with your photographer to try and organize that, but being able to make it a private experience is another huge, huge differentiator in the experience that you guys have.
And not just the private experience, it's the semi-private that you keyed in on, because private to go to go all private, blows a lot of people's budgets, and we
Yeah.
are really trying to work with people to give them the experience they want while staying within their budget. And it's like, okay, we do small group tours anyway. How can we do this as special as possible so that you can focus in on your moment, but have others kind of sharing the cost so that you're not holding the
Right.
whole bill. That's
Right.
actually the trickier part. I mean, it's easy to block off seats and just hand somebody a very large bill. It's harder to do the semi-private, and that's what we're willing to do.
So you had mentioned earlier that because of the blessing and the curse of Kenai Fjords, the national park, the ability to land on the glaciers, you'll see different materials in different places, but is it possible to land on the Bear Glacier? Do the rules allow you to land next to it if the weather and the conditions are completely right? Like, can you see the glacier from the ground? I've gotten that question before, so I don't know if you can speak to that.
So, the best way to see Bear Glacier is going to be from the air. A lot of people talk about boat tours going there. They're not going to be able to get you in the lagoon with the icebergs. They're going to be on the far side. So, basically, where the glaciers receded, it's created this huge
Hmm.
lagoon. And the special part is when the glacier calves, this tidewater glacier, the icebergs are kind of trapped in that lagoon for viewing. They don't float out to sea like another glacier, Ialik, which is nearby. So boats have to stay on that far side. So you're not going to get an up close view from a boat. So with the helicopter, we can fly right up
Okay.
to base. We can usually go up some of it, and that connects back to the Harding ice field, which a lot of people have heard of. We're not going to be able to land on it at all. It's kind of between these two mountains. And so even if there wasn't the national park restriction, there's not a lot of conducive landing areas. We can land
Okay.
in view of the glacier, depending on, every year is different in the way that the glacier is receding back pretty quickly, but you'll
Hmm.
definitely be able to view it. And we have other glaciers that we can land at. If people's goal is to touch ice, we can get you that. To land on a glacier, I mean, we always evaluate every year for ice landing locations because glaciers do change every year.
Hmm.
But I would not count on being able to have the helicopter itself put its skids down on ice. I would say most likely if you're on top of a glacier, you're on snow on the glacier because we're landing at a high enough elevation that there's snowpack. So you're either going to be on the snow or we're going to land at like
Yeah.
2,500 feet up in the mountains where you're at the base of one of the glaciers and you can go up and touch it. Now, the thing I caution with people with that, and you can speak more to this being a photographer, but with that kind of glacier landing, unless you're on the very top with the snow and the dogs, those kind of lower levels where you can touch the ice, I think you're more limited from a photography standpoint because it's this kind of one direction. You've got very earthy kind of landscape because the glacier, as it's moved back, has exposed all this bare earth, and so you've got bare earth and the
Yeah.
ice, and that's it. I feel like it doesn't give you a whole lot. So if people want to really do that glacier landing photo, I always encourage another landing as well.
Yeah. I would agree with that wholeheartedly because where you are at like the toe of the glacier, yes, there is a lot of the moraine with the rocks and the dirt, and then the end of the glacier isn't always pretty. Sometimes the edge is really dynamic and beautiful and blue, but not always. Sometimes it's kind of slopey, kind of full of dirt and rocks and right because it's the edge. And
Right.
so to your point, it depends on the season. I would say for me, if I'm talking to a couple who really want Seward and they really want a glacier, I would 100% encourage where's the dog sledding? God,
It's on Godwin.
I would encourage Godwin. Yes, it's kind of a snowfield glacier, but holy crap, is it beautiful. Just to feel this expanse with the mountains coming up out of it and the flight in and out, stunning. And so it's different, but it's beautiful. So To your point earlier, I think you can't stress that enough. Pick the place where you want to be and then love the place for what it is, not what you
Hmm.
desire it to be.
Yeah.
So let's talk about mountain landings because I know that that's definitely something that you guys do, and you have some really unique mountain landing views. So tell me a little bit about mountain landings, some of the excursions that are offered with that. Like, what does that feel like?
That's one of my favorite things. We have a heli hiking tour, and it is a short amount of flight time, but it's basically what you guys incorporated into your 2-day trip, which was a landing location, kind of a mountain range. You feel like you're in the middle of nowhere. You can have a picnic and you can hike around for a little bit. And
Yeah,
that's one of my favorite things to do. That's one of the things that makes Seward so special is those mountains. And you can get such a variety from 360-degree mountains to alpine lakes to the mountain and water view, just depending on where you land. One thing I would caution with that is
mm,
coastal Alaska is naturally a very overcast place. And we usually have, you know, clouds that cover the top of the mountains. That is very, very typical. That is our average weather in coastal Alaska. I would always recommend people to have flexibility in their schedule. With you guys, I remember there were specific activities you wanted and you were flexible about the order. And it was like, okay, the weather's great for this right
yeah,
now. We're doing this first. And that was kind of a last minute decision, but we really stayed flexible with the weather and we did stuff like at high elevation first.
yeah,
Okay, we've got the weather for this. This is the what we're going to do now, and then we're going to work
yeah.
our way down to the less weather dependent stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Flexibility is absolutely key. So, so, so important in Alaska. So, thinking about that, if a couple is doing, right, a single day elopement, right, maybe a couple of hours going on a tour, but they want to incorporate travel afterwards, like you're going all this way, you really should experience this amazing place. Like, how long would you suggest couples spend in Alaska to honeymoon or travel after their elopement days?
It depends on where they're trying to go and what they're trying to do. I guess, you can think of it either way, right? Because if you're trying to do certain activities, you need to go certain places. Like we talked about, things are far in Alaska. If you're down in Seward doing your elopement and then you want to do something that dictates you to go to Fairbanks, you need to allow time for that. So I would say
Yeah.
the length of time I recommend or vice versa, the length of time you have is going to dictate what I recommend because you don't want to feel like you're in the car the whole time. It's great to kind of to wing it on some levels, but having a structure to your trip is really important because it takes a lot to kind of figure out where stuff is and how to get there. There's not a set amount of time I recommend. My first question would be what are you looking to do?
Yeah.
Because based on what those specific mental images you have are for your vacation, I'm going to say, well, that's here and there and here and here. And to really enjoy that, you need 2 weeks. Or I'm going to say, oh, you can do all of that like on the Kenai Peninsula. You're fine with like a few days.
Speaking of kind of that weather window, Alaska is notorious for the weather, so flexibility is super, super key. What can couples kind of expect to experience in Seward for weather, especially in that summer window?
So, Seward is naturally a very overcast place, being coastal Alaska. That's kind of typical of a lot of coastal Alaska towns. We typically have kind of clouds covering the mountain peaks. It is beautiful in that way, but definitely love Alaska for what it is. And I think it's tough when people kind of come with the expectation of these, California skies. And, we don't have
Right.
big blue skies a lot of the time. And if we do, a lot of times that comes with a lot of wind pushing those clouds out of this naturally overcast. So, not always the best time to when you see blue skies and sunshine. It can be a really windy day. I think there's a lot of magic that happens with these different kind of cloud coverage. And I think it can look really cool in photos. I will say it's really important that when you plan anything with Alaska, if there's certain things you really want to do, kind of prioritizing them at the front of your trip and leaving different flexibility and weather windows to adjust, you know?
Yeah, I would say that having a little bit longer elopement, like if you book only a 4-hour elopement session, that's kind of it. You have to pivot within that tight window that you have. But my elopements tend to be a day and a half or longer. This particular one that you were mentioning wasn't actually a 2-day experience. And so because of that, we had the flexibility to pivot, to move, to restack things, to reorganize. So I would definitely say couples anywhere in Alaska, but I think in Seward, if they only want to book a very short experience, you have to come in with an absolute flexibility mindset of whatever the weather will give us is exactly perfect. We are so happy to go do whatever we can.
Alaska is so different because it's not
Hmm.
a place that's super developed, and that's what I love about it.
Right.
So helicopter allows you to see so much more of it, and you see
Hmm.
it in this untouched way.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely want to come back to the Bear Glacier glamping because that is an amazing experience of itself. But to your point about the vastness and the expanse, when you come over the ridgeline and approach across the lagoon and you look down and you see all of these icebergs in the water and the mountains and just the richness of the colors. And then it's like you see this ridge line on, the side of the lagoon. And then when you look close, you see the itty bitty yurts. And you're like, oh my gosh, you get to stay there. Like that is mind blowing when you think about the remoteness and the uniqueness of that access and those three little buildings. It just is it's incredible. And I think it's such a great way to experience Seward and just the beautiful area that you have because you get the mountains and you get the water and you get the ice with the glacier and the icebergs and the kayaking. But if you don't want to do any of that, you don't have to do any of that. You can just sit and listen to the icebergs in the water. Like how magical. Amazing.
Yes, I would say that overnight stay is to me
Hmm.
personally, that would be the most special experience we do because it allows all this time to do beach walks and do kayaking and really immerse yourself in this place.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think for couples who maybe are nervous or apprehensive about staying overnight, it's guided. You're not by
Mhm.
yourself back in this year. There's the mountain butler, if
Yes,
you call it that, so you're not there fending for yourself.
right. We're not leaving people alone in the wilderness. So we
It's
definitely
not
want to be
Survivor.
comfortable. Exactly.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. But even couples who are like, still, I'm not sure if that's for us, the glamping aspect I get is a little bit different. I think even doing one of the day excursions
Mhm.
to go do the kayaking, to take the time to do a picnic, like my couple on day 2 of their adventure, we went kayaking through the lagoon. Amazing. And we went to a far shore and we had a picnic lunch in the lupines, and it was beautiful. Actually, fun fact, one of the images from day 2 of their kayaking experience was awarded an honorable mention for June bugs for best of destination weddings, which is a huge deal
Yeah, that's
because
amazing. I love that.
yeah, it's so fun because it's novel, because it's a wedding photo competition, but they weren't even in wedding clothes. And so I think for me, that just speaks to the power of the experience that eloping in Alaska creates. It's so much more than just the ceremony, it's the celebration that you create in this immense and amazing place. So,
Well, it's you're recognizing that time together and that what a wedding is, you can clearly see their bond and it's a really great photo.
doing something incredibly cool that you'll tell about forever. And I think that's super fun about Alaska as well. When else are you going to go on a helicopter and perch on a mountaintop?
Right? I mean, there's just no better place to do it is the truth.
Yeah, exactly. So I am a huge fan of Bear Glacier, the glamping, and definitely the dog sledding.
We do the tour. It's always an amazing experience. And you mush with a team and on a small sled and get to meet the dogs. And we often have puppies. And it's just a really
Yeah.
it's a fun intro to the sport, you know?
Hmm.
So that's just a really great way to do something iconic Alaska. We've had a camp up on Godwin Glacier for I think we're going on 15 years and I
Oh,
don't
wow.
yeah, I don't know anybody else who has such a long track record on on the glacier, maybe some of the camp in Juneau, but I'm not sure how long they've been going, but it's been quite a long
Hmm.
time for us. And so we know that glacier really well, which is super important. Over all these years, we've honed in on what's the best spot for the camp and really
Hmm.
understand the weather up there. And we everything we do is small groups. And so there's something for every budget. And I really want to work with people within their budget.
We talked about it a little bit, but I think just as people are considering where in Alaska they want to go for the overall experience, I do think that is one of the things that makes Seward a little bit of a unicorn because you've got the cute little coffee shop, the restaurants, and the little trinket shops, cool parks, and all kinds of lodging opportunities. But to your point, there are things to do there versus some other places in Alaska where you're going purely for the adventure, and sometimes that is enough. That is why you're there. That is the reason. But I think this is such a beautiful blend for couples who want something that is an immersive adventure, but then wants a fuller experience around that without having to travel a huge amount to go to the quote unquote next thing. So say the things that you really want and don't be tied to an idea, be tied to that feeling. Maybe you think you want a picture by a glacier, but what you want is you want the beautiful ice and the colors and the textures. And oh, by the way, that allows Elise to tell you that you don't want to be by the glacier. You want to be by the icebergs because that's way cooler. So I think communicating what you want helps us as vendors help you as a couple better. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think the icebergs in particular, it may not have as much of an allure to the sound as like being actually able to touch a glacier. But when you think of what the photo is going to look like, that's a helpful thing because with the icebergs, you have this greenery, you have backs of mountains, you have water. There's more going on versus just the ice and the earth. So it's
Yeah.
talking to a couple about the reality because I
Yeah.
want to not only meet people's expectations, I want to exceed them. And so I really want to talk to people and show people example photos is I find really helpful. This is what
Hmm.
this actually would look like. Is this what you're going for?
Yeah. I love it. Okay. So I'm going to wrap us up here. This has been amazing. Thank you so much. I actually have a random question for you personally.
Okay.
What is an experience or a place on your bucket list? Like so many couples coming to Alaska is on their bucket list. If you're leaving, where are you going, Elise?
There's so many places and experiences that I want to have in this state, and I don't necessarily want to, advertise any particular one because I think they're
Uh-huh.
all so cool. But I mean, I work a helicopter company. I love to fly. I love seeing these untouched places from the air where you can really get this huge
Mm-hmm.
this sense of how huge everything is. I would say an experience I haven't done before, but I'd be looking to do. I've been
Mm-hmm.
working at a helicopter company. I'm going on 6 years. Maybe one of my goals is to try flying myself. So that's kind of something on.
Ooh.
But if you haven't been working for a helicopter company for 6 years, I recommend just taking a flight to see a lap because I think that's the best. Best way to experience the state.
Well, I will look forward to the day when you're my pilot, taking
Okay.
a couple around to see all of your favorite sites. I'm going to check in on you and I'll give it 2 years. That
Okay,
seems like an
great.
appropriate amount of time to
Great
push
tip.
it.
Perfect.
I love it. Okay, so we're going to close with some rapid fire here.
Okay.
Okay, Elise, describe Alaska in 3 words.
I would say to me, Alaska is vast. I love the endless landscape of nature. And it's
Okay.
wilderness in the sense that it's so wild. That's one thing I love about it and I want to
Yeah.
help preserve. And so
Yeah.
vast and wild, and I would say, for me it's home. I've been here going on 10 years and it's
Oh,
a place I really love.
my heart. I love that so much. Okay, next one. What's a moment in nature that lives rent free in your brain?
Hmm. I have so many being up here that it's hard to pick one. More recently, I would go, Seward is a rainforest. That's something we didn't hit on and should definitely be noted. You
Yeah,
are
definitely. Yes. Okay.
a rainforest. And so it is a tropical temperate rainforest, sorry. So not the tropical sense.
Yep.
So people don't realize that you
Hmm.
can have rainforest in Alaska, but it is. Um,
Yes.
it's it's beautiful. I went for a lot of walks in the last few weeks and in the rainforest because when it's raining, go to the rainforest because at least you have this canopy. The amount of
Yeah.
moss is incredible. I just loved my nature walks with my dog. I just took pictures of all these different
Oh,
of fungus and mushrooms and moss and lichen, and it was like magical
yeah.
fairyland, and that's so accessible,
I
and
love
it's
it.
a large part of the Seward beauty, and it's a reminder that
Hmm.
yes, it's raining. You are in a temperate rainforest in coastal Alaska.
A temperate rainforest.
Go
Yes.
go to the rainforest and check out all the, like, these beautiful greens and whites and reds and browns and how special that area really is.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that gets to the discussion earlier on the time, right? Take
Mhm.
the time to be able to slow down, whether it's in your actual elopement days or in the adventure that you build that follows. Allow yourself time to go walk slowly somewhere, to just sit and to just observe and to just be. Like there is such beauty to that, especially in Alaska. I would agree. Okay, last question for all the marbles. So many couples who will be listening to this will be traveling. So, what is the one thing that you never travel without? What's in your go bag?
Well, I mean, let's assume it's summer because that's when I'm encouraging people to come.
Yes.
I would say Alaska in the summer. I mean, different areas of Alaska are so different. So I'm going to assume they're going to Seward because that's again what I'm trying to push here.
Obviously.
So if you're doing Seward in the summer, I would say, you're going to want to really enjoy the place, dress for the occasion. You have your water boots, even if it's not raining, it's probably going to be soft, squishy, moist moss. It might be, kind of muddy.
Mhm.
Bring a rain jacket. Bring stuff that's going to allow you to enjoy the outdoors. Do not show up in like suede heeled booties.
Not practical. Yes. In our world, it is function and then form. Yes, it can look good, but we always focus on can it perform in the conditions as the first benchmark, and then is it cute? So, agree. I will say amen to that. You're going to have a better time
You're
with
gonna
the
have a
right
better
gear.
time if you're comfortable. If you are able to stay, a little bit protected from the elements of this wonderful wilderness we're talking about, you're gonna, want to stay out there longer and enjoy it more. So,
Yeah.
definitely come prepared for the outdoors.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. Well, Elise, this has been so fabulous. Is there anything else that you would want to share with couples who are thinking about eloping to Alaska, Seward or otherwise? Any last thoughts?
Yes, I can't stress enough how important it is to really take the time to plan the trip in advance. At least in terms of having some sort of structure. I'm the type of person who I do so much planning in my work life. I don't tend to do it at all in my personal life.
Mhm.
And Alaska is not a good place to figure it out as you go. I mean, in a certain sense, yes,
Yeah.
leave flexibility, leave room to pivot, leave room to add on things you didn't know about, but take the time to before you come to develop a structure to your trip. So whether they're talking to somebody like me, the operator of what they're trying to do, or they're talking to somebody like you who knows the area well and has planned these sort of things, talk to people who have really been there firsthand, I think is super helpful.
Yeah, agree.
I think Alaska is it's a tough place to plan on your own. It's really big. I see people all the time that accidentally book things in the wrong town or a plane leaving the wrong area. And so it's like, take the time to really talk to people who have been there, structure your trip well. That way your expectations are met. You can take advantage of the areas you're going. But I really, as somebody who doesn't plan when it comes to life stuff, I'm going to say when it comes to Alaska and this trip that you're going to be pouring time and money and all this stuff, take the time to really look into it.
No, I fully agree because I don't know how many conversations I've had where folks are like, so if we are in Seward, but we also want to go to Fairbanks, or thinking about going over to Wrangell St. Elias, ChatGPT will give you an itinerary that 90% of the time is not actually an obtainable itinerary unless you have like a month in Alaska. And I think without talking to somebody who has driven it, who has flown it, who understands it, I think to your point, it can be a little bit touch and go. So
that's part of the spice of it, right? That's all part of the adventure. But some of it, in terms of like, okay,
if you can avoid it,
in terms of I booked this tour in Seward, but I'm actually in Ketchikan or actually in Juneau, or I booked a flight out of Kenai and I'm on the Kenai Peninsula, but I'm not actually in the town of Kenai. I'm in Seward. So some of that, can really be
right.
Run smooth if you find some people to chat with.
Definitely talk to folks like you and your team, folks like me, elopement planners, and photographers. We've seen a lot as well.
Yeah.
Information is power here for sure.
Right. Especially, like I said, with Alaska, which is just such a big undertaking to understand.
Elise, thank you for your time and your expertise, sharing all of these juicy little tidbits. Thanks to you and your team for taking such good care of my Soul and Sky couples. I can't wait to explore more with you guys. So thank you.
I would love that. The weddings, the elopements, it's my favorite thing that we do, for sure. Creating these custom events, finding things that fit what people are looking for. It's certainly a really special part of the company.
Yeah, it's beautiful. All right, so here's cheers to many more.
All right. Well, I hope to see you again soon.